Have you ever stopped to think that eternity is not just something we expect after death, but something that has already begun now? This question, by itself, seems to challenge everything we have been taught to believe about time, life, and spirituality. When we think of eternity, we almost always imagine something distant, a future promise, an after that will only open before us when we close our eyes to this life. But what if it's not quite like that? What if eternity were already happening, pulsing within the present moment, beating to the rhythm of your now? Think with me. How many times have you caught yourself running after time, trapped between memories of what has passed and the anxiety of what has not yet arrived? How many times, even surrounded by people, commitments, and achievements, have you felt that you were losing something essential? Maybe you've already realized that human time is relentless. Seconds that slip away, hours that don't come back, days that disappear like dust. But what if this clock that haunts us so much wasn't the only possible clock? What if there were another kind of time, a spiritual time, that is not measured in hands, but in depth, presence, and eternity? C.S. Lewis, one of the greatest Christian thinkers of the 20th century, invites us to dive into exactly this dimension. He reminds us that God is not bound to our calendar, our schedules, or the counting of our years. For God, everything is an eternal now. And this idea, so simple at first glance, has the power to completely revolutionize the way we see life. Because deep down, what we call eternal life is not just an entry ticket to the afterlife, but an invitation to live the present with transformed eyes. Maybe this sounds strange. How has eternity already begun? I know it may seem like just a play on words, but it's not. What you are about to discover may surprise you, because when we talk about eternity, we are not talking about something abstract, distant, or unattainable. We are talking about today, the instant you breathe, the opportunity that is before you at this very moment. Have you ever experienced this? That feeling that a common moment becomes extraordinary, as if something bigger were revealing itself behind the simple? It could be in the smile of someone you love, in the silence of a prayer, or even in the gentle touch of the wind on your face. These moments carry something of the eternal, as if they were small windows through which the infinite can be glimpsed. And here is the provocation. If eternity is already happening now, why do we so often live as if we were just waiting for the future? Aren't we wasting the most precious gift, the present, precisely because we don't realize that it is in it that the eternal manifests itself?
Lewis helps us understand that living in the past or the future is falling into a trap. The past is gone. It can teach us, but it will never come back. The future, in turn, does not yet exist. We can dream about it, plan, but never truly touch it. The only time we have real access to life is the now. And it is in the now that God meets us. This means that every second lived with spiritual consciousness is already a piece of eternity. Maybe you're thinking, but my life is full of hurry, problems, routine. Where would eternity be in that? The truth is that it is precisely in these places, seemingly common, that the eternal reveals itself. Eternity does not wait for you to be ready, perfect, or in a sacred temple. It invades the everyday, transforms the banal into the sacred, and shows that even small choices carry an eternal weight. Imagine that every gesture of love, every word of forgiveness, every prayer made in silence is like a seed planted in the soil of eternity. Nothing is lost. Nothing is in vain. Lewis deeply believed in this, that spiritual life is not separate from practical life, but is revealed within it. The eternal is hidden in the details of the present. And here is one of the most liberating ideas. When we connect to the now with spiritual eyes, we realize that eternity is not a distant destination, but a constant presence. We don't need to wait for the end of life to experience what eternal life means. We can live it today, here, in this second. This does not mean that suffering disappears, that problems end, or that pain ceases to exist. It means that even in the midst of the struggle, there is a dimension of peace and meaning that only the eternal can offer. Have you ever felt something similar? That moment when, despite the pain, an inexplicable peace arises, or when in the midst of the rush, there is suddenly a moment of clarity that makes everything seem different. These are flashes of eternity, small signs that spiritual time does not run the same way as human time. Lewis said that God does not ask us to live in yesterday or tomorrow. He calls us to live today, because it is in today that we find His voice, His presence, and His action. And this changes everything. Think with me, how many days have you lived without really living? How many moments have you let slip away because you were too worried about what has already been or what is yet to come? If eternity is in the now, then every moment is precious. Every encounter is sacred. Every breath is an opportunity for communion with God. And when we look at life this way, even the simplest moments, a family breakfast, an unexpected conversation, a silent sunset, are transformed into experiences full of meaning.
But why does this matter so much? Because our vision of eternity shapes the way we live. If we believe that eternal life is just a future reward, we can fall into the error of neglecting the present, as if it had no value. But if we understand that the now is already immersed in the eternal, then there is no moment that can be wasted. Every choice carries an eternal weight. Every attitude reveals the direction we are taking. Stay with me until the end, because in the next moments, we are going to dive deeper into this mystery. We will explore what it means to live between two times: human time, which runs and exhausts itself, and spiritual time, which opens up like an infinite window within the present. We will understand how C.S. Lewis translated this truth in his works, and how this can transform the way we face our days. And maybe, at the end of this journey, you will discover that eternity is not just out there or up ahead, but inside the now that you have in your hands. Every second is an invitation, every moment a door, and this door can open today. But before we cross this door and understand more clearly what it means to live the eternal within the present, we need to take an important step: learn to distinguish between human time, marked by clocks, commitments, and deadlines, and spiritual time, which does not obey hands, but the living presence of God. And it is precisely there that we begin to realize that eternity is not an unattainable mystery, but a palpable reality, which already envelops us here and now. And you know, as we reflect together on this mystery of living eternity in the now, I want to open a space for conversation with you who are on the other side of the screen. Because it doesn't make sense for this topic to just stay here as a monologue of mine. It needs to also come to life through your experience, your view, the way you feel and understand all this. So, if at any moment of this reflection something touched your heart or awakened in you a memory, a feeling, a question, share it with me in the comments. I really read each one of them, and it's incredible to realize how each story, each point of view, adds new layers to this journey we are traveling together. And look, if this topic makes sense to you, also leave your like. It may seem like a simple detail, but it's this gesture that shows YouTube that this content has value. And thanks to that, it can reach other people who also need to hear that eternity has already begun in the present. It's like a chain of good. When you click like, you help this message spread even more. And if you have made it this far and feel that this is the kind of reflection you want to continue following, I want to invite you to subscribe to the channel.
This is much more than just pressing a button. It's becoming part of a community that grows every day, united by the desire to deepen faith, spirituality, and the transformative ideas of C.S. Lewis. When you subscribe, you guarantees that you will always receive new content, new conversations, new opportunities to reflect and to be spiritually strengthened. Your participation here is what keeps this space alive. It's no exaggeration to say that every comment, every like, and every subscription become, in a way, concrete signs of this eternity that we are learning to see. Because all this creates connection, brings people closer, gives voice to different experiences, and reminds us that no one is walking alone. And while you think about that, I want to invite you to take one more step with me.
Because understanding human time and spiritual time is just the beginning. The next step is to discover how, in practice, we can open our eyes to the eternal that is already present in the midst of our routine. C.S. Lewis was always more than a fantasy writer or an Oxford academic. He became a world reference in spirituality and Christian philosophy because he had the rare ability to translate profound truths into accessible images, stories that speak directly to the heart. What made him fascinating was not just the content of his ideas, but the way he was able to reveal the invisible through the visible. Lewis had this sensitivity to see beyond the surface of life, to find in routine, in pain, and even in fleeting joy, signs of a greater eternity, which is already in motion. And that is exactly why, when we talk about spiritual time, we are not dealing with a distant theory or an abstract doctrine. We are talking about something that changes the way you see today, the way you decide, how you relate, how you breathe. He said that human time is like a straight line, marked by a beginning, a middle, and an end. You are born, you grow, you get old, you die. It is chronological time, what the Greeks called chronos. It's the time we feel passing when we look at the clock or the calendar. And this time slips from our hands, because every minute lived is a minute lost forever. But Lewis reminded us that God's time is not a line. It is an eternal circle, a constant present. For God, there is no past or future as we understand them, because He lives in an eternal now. This is one of the great revelations that change the mindset. What seems limited to us is full for Him. What is a fragment to us is a totality to Him. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because when you start to perceive this difference, something opens up inside you. For us, minutes pass.
Hours turn into days. Days turn into years, and life seems to escape like sand between our fingers. But for God, nothing is lost. Every moment is eternal. Every breath is current before Him. He contemplates the entire timeline at once, like someone looking at a complete painting, not just a part of it. This perspective radically changes the way we see our choices, because if God is in the eternal now, it means that every one of our decisions echoes in eternity. There is no action too small or a moment irrelevant. Everything counts. Everything matters. And this is where one of Lewis's most powerful ideas comes in. Eternal life is not just a future promise, but a living presence that has already begun in the present. It is not a prize for later, but an invitation for now. This means that when you love, forgive, serve, or pray, you are already experiencing eternity. You are already tasting what it means to live in God. It's not about waiting to get to heaven to finally experience the eternal. It's about realizing that heaven has already begun to touch the earth, that the infinite is already revealing itself in the present moment. Think about how many times you have treated the present as something fleeting, almost worthless, while waiting for a better future. How many times have you believed that only when you reach a certain goal, achieve that dream, or get to a certain phase of life will you finally be happy? Lewis shows that this is an illusion, because eternity is not in the distant future, but in today. The now is the sacred place where God dwells. And when you live with this awareness, even the common moments gain eternal weight. That's why he insisted that the present is the only time we really have. The past is gone, and no matter how much we try to hold on to it, it escapes. We can learn from it, but we cannot relive it. The future, in turn, does not yet exist. We can plan, we can dream, but we cannot touch it. The only real, concrete time is the now, and it is here, in this second, that eternity manifests itself. Lewis used metaphors and stories to help us see this more clearly. In The Chronicles of Narnia, for example, each door that opens to that fantastic world is a symbol of this eternity that invades the present.
The transition from a wardrobe to an entire kingdom shows that behind the most banal everyday life, there can be access to the infinite. In Mere Christianity, he explains that God does not relate to us in a way limited by human time. For him, all the prayers of all times are before him at the same time, as if each one were current and present. This shows us that eternity is not just an endless line, but a quality of life, a depth of presence that we can already experience here.
But what prevents us from realizing this? Often, it's the danger of living imprisoned by the past or the future. When we are trapped by what has already happened, feeding grudges, regrets, or glories that do not return, we stop living. When we project ourselves too much into what is yet to come, full of anxiety, fear, or expectation, we also lose the only real chance to live, the now. Lewis warned that this is a dangerous trick because it robs us of what God offers us. God only gives us the present because it is in it that we can act, change, transform. The past is no longer ours. The future is not yet. Only the present is a gift. And maybe you have already felt this firsthand. Have you noticed how some memories weigh so much that they seem to prevent you from moving forward? Or how certain worries about tomorrow steal your peace today? This is the impact of living outside of real time. Because when we are trapped in yesterday or tomorrow, we let the eternal that pulses now slip away. The hidden truth is that life happens only in this instant, and it is in this instant that God reveals himself. The big question is, how to bring eternity to the everyday? How to make the now a sacred place? We are not talking about something distant, too mystical, or out of our reach. We are talking about simple but profound practices. When you make a sincere prayer, you touch the eternal. When you give thanks, even for the small things, you open your eyes to the eternity that is already present. When you give yourself to a true conversation, without a rush, without distraction, you experience something eternal. Every gesture of love, every act of forgiveness, every choice of generosity is a reflection of eternity. And it's amazing how this mindset transforms our journey. Because suddenly you realize that life is not a race to get somewhere, but a space of communion with the eternal at every step. The present ceases to be a passing point and becomes a place of encounter. A silent breakfast can be as sacred as a liturgy in a temple if you see that it is there that the eternal manifests itself. Now, take a deep breath and think with me. What if God's eternity was already touching your life today? How would you live the now differently? What impact would this have on your choices, on the way you treat people, on the way you deal with pressures and difficulties? Maybe you would start to see every moment not as something disposable, but as a unique opportunity. Maybe you would stop living on autopilot and start to see the present as a door open to something bigger. This is a reflection that requires courage, because it calls us to stop running away to the past or the future and face the now as it is, full of challenges, but also full of possibilities.
Lewis believed that eternity was not a distant idea, but a concrete experience that begins when we look at the present with spiritual eyes. When we understand this, we begin to realize that every decision, no matter how small it may seem, shapes our eternity. A gesture of kindness today does not disappear, it reverberates. A word of love is not lost, it echoes in spiritual time. It's as if every action were written not only in the book of our history, but in the book of eternity. This reminds us that the now is more than a circumstance. It is responsibility, it is opportunity, it is revelation. And it is at this point that I want to invite you to reflect even more deeply. Because if eternity is already in the now, then life is not just survival, but transformation. The present becomes the place where grace is revealed, where heaven touches the earth, where every moment is imbued with meaning. It's as if chronological time were just the stage, and spiritual time were the real play happening behind the scenes. This awareness changes our mindset. You stop seeing the everyday as something mechanical and start to realize that it is full of revelations. The simple act of breathing can become a prayer. The gesture of listening to someone with attention can become an act of love. The choice to forgive can become the key to eternal liberation. The now is revealed as a door to the infinite.
And I want you to take this with you. Every moment has eternal weight. Every second is a chance to experience the sacred. When you remember this, life gains a new color, a new light. You stop living dragged by human time and start to live in tune with the divine clock, which does not mark hours, but eternity. Comment below. This makes sense to me. I really want to know how this idea resonates with you, because every word shared here is also part of this journey of discoveries that we are building together. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because when we talk about the human clock in contrast to the divine clock, we're entering a territory that directly affects the way we interpret life. The human clock measures minutes, hours, days, years. It is precise, impersonal, inevitable. It reminds us of aging, the passing of cycles, of what never comes back. The divine clock, on the other hand, is not measured in hands but in presence. It doesn't count hours, it reveals meaning. While human time pressures us, spiritual time frees us. C.S. Lewis insisted on this difference because he knew how much we, human beings, are anxious before the clock. We run against time as if life were a deadline that is always about to expire. We live in urgency, in the fear of losing opportunities, in the weight of carrying past regrets, or the obsession of controlling the future. The human clock makes us slaves.
But when we change perspective and align ourselves with the divine clock, we discover that every moment can be eternal. The now ceases to be just a fraction that is consumed and becomes a space of communion, a living piece of eternity. This does not mean that human time is useless. It is necessary to organize life, to fulfill responsibilities, to create order in the world. But it cannot be absolute, because if we look only at it, we will lose the greater dimension. It's like admiring only the seconds that pass on a stopwatch without realizing that there is an entire landscape happening around it. Lewis reminded us that human time is like a loose thread in the tapestry of eternity. It only makes sense when seen as a whole. And this whole is only revealed when we accept that eternal life is already happening. This radically changes our mindset, because if eternity is not just a distant future but a living presence, then we are already living within it. The now is not just a path to the destination, but the place where the destination is already manifesting itself. This revelation has a huge impact. Every choice, every gesture, every thought is a brick placed in the construction of eternity. We are not rehearsing for something that will come. We are already inside the play. We are already acting on the stage of the eternal. This awareness can be transformative. Imagine how it would change the way you live if every decision were faced as something eternal. Not in the sense of living with fear, but in living with depth. Lewis said that we are eternal creatures dealing with other eternal creatures. This means that the way we treat someone is never neutral, never just momentary. It always leaves marks. The good we do doesn't die, and the evil we choose doesn't disappear. Everything reverberates in the eternal now of God. And this is where the beauty of the present as a sacred place comes in, because the present is the only door of access to eternity. You cannot live yesterday, and you cannot yet live tomorrow, but you can live this second. It is in it that the divine meets us. The now is the point of contact between human time and spiritual time. It is the place where heaven and earth meet. And when we live with this awareness, the banal becomes sacred, the common becomes extraordinary. Lewis used stories and metaphors to show this in a way that was easy to understand. He knew that the abstract can get lost in words, but imagination helps us to see the invisible. In the Chronicles of Narnia, for example, the experience of the children entering Narnia is like the encounter with the eternal. A common door hidden in a wardrobe opens to reveal a bigger, deeper, more meaningful world. The everyday becomes a gateway to the extraordinary. This image is not just fantasy, it is a metaphor for spiritual time.
The eternal reveals itself within the most common moment, if only we have eyes to see.
Another example is in Mere Christianity, when Lewis explains that God does not see time as we do. For him, all moments are present at the same time. This means that when you pray, God doesn't have to wait his turn or fit your prayer into a queue. For him, every prayer is heard in the same eternal instant. This truth changes our vision of spiritual life. We are not throwing words into the void. We are entering a now that is never lost. But why, then, do we live so distracted? The danger is that we become trapped in the past or the future. The past pulls us with memories, pains, regrets, or nostalgias that paralyze us. The future haunts us with fears, anxieties, and expectations that don't even exist yet. And in this game of being in two places that are not real, we lose the only place where God waits for us, the present. Lewis warned about this trick because he knew that living outside the now is wasting the most precious gift of life. And isn't it true that we often do this without realizing it? How many moments have been lost because you are thinking about what you should have done or what is yet to come? How many times has dinner with the family passed without you being truly present because your mind was somewhere else? This is the great risk, to go through an entire life without ever having really lived because the mind was always in yesterday or tomorrow. But the present is the place of eternity. It is in it that you find meaning, purpose, revelations. It is in it that you can choose to love, to forgive, to give thanks, to change. It is in it that decisions cease to be merely circumstantial and become eternal. The now is the door to an encounter with God. And what does this mean in practice? That eternity is not just in great religious experiences or in solemn moments, but also in the everyday. It is in a prayer made in silence, in a word of affection said from the heart, in a gesture of kindness made without expecting anything in return. Eternity reveals itself when you look someone in the eyes and see there an eternal creature loved by God. It is present when you give thanks for the simple, when you choose to live with full attention, when you transform the banal into the sacred. This is the transformation that C.S. Lewis wanted to provoke, that we stop living by running against the human clock and start living in tune with the divine clock, because only then does the present cease to be a place of hurry and become a place of encounter. Every second can become eternal if we live with spiritual awareness. And I want to leave you with a question that can change the way you live. What if God's eternity was already touching your life today? How would you live the now differently? Maybe this question is uncomfortable because it makes us realize how much time we waste on distractions, resentments, or anxieties.
But at the same time, it opens a window of hope, because the now is always before us as an invitation. No matter what has passed, no matter what is yet to come, the now is always an opportunity to enter into eternity. It is in this instant, in the here and now, that you can choose to live in a more conscious, more complete way, more in tune with the eternal. And this changes everything. It changes your relationship with people. It changes the way you face challenges. It changes the way you value every second. Because eternity is not just in some distant future. It pulses in the present. Comment below, I'm on this journey too. I really want to know how this idea resonates with you, because every word shared here is also part of this journey of discoveries that we are building together. And if you've made it this far with me, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for the company in this very special reflection. If this content made sense to you, subscribe to the channel to continue walking together with me in these conversations that strengthen faith and illuminate life. And let me know in the comments that you stayed until the end. It can be with a simple phrase like, "I'm with you until the end," or "This message was for me."
It will be great to recognize who is together on this journey until the last words. Oh, and also leave your like, because that shows that this dialogue really touched you and helps to keep this connection alive between us. Now, if you want to take the next step, there is a video here on the side that complements exactly what we talked about today. Click and stay with me there. I'll be waiting for you.